Hello and welcome. If you're new to my channel, then welcome to Life in Notions. My name is Christine. Today I am going to share with you my newly redecorated and reorganized crafts room, and I am so excited to share with you the results of this project. And it was completed around 2 weeks ago. However, about 24 hours after completing this redecoration project, I actually jumped on a plane to Cyprus to enjoy some much needed sunshine with my family over there, and I only returned home yesterday. So this is the first chance I've had to film this tour. I hope you'll enjoy what I show you. I'll explain what I've done and why, and if you've got any tips or tricks for me on how I could further improve this space, then please let me know. I hope you enjoy the tour. This room was originally gold, a very unusual colour, but it was the colour that the daughter of the previous family insisted on having this. This was her bedroom. It's a very difficult colour to work with in terms of decor, and it sucked all the light out of the room as well, which is a really big problem. So for arts and crafts, of course, you want to have really nice lighting, and so I decided to paint this room brilliant white. However, we had a lot of difficulty covering up the gold. We should have put down a primer on the wall before we did anything else, but we didn't. We instead ended up having to paint 5 layers of brilliant white on top of the gold. It is now completely done, but that's partly why this room took so long to redecorate. It was just getting rid of the gold. It kept slipping and sliding all over the gold, and you kept seeing areas where it was a bit patchy, and despite using really high quality paint, it took 5 layers of paint to cover it up. So now it's brilliant white, which you might think is very unexciting, but the reason for that is, well, we had brilliant white left over from when we painted the kitchen in our old house before we put it on the market. So why spend money when you've already got something lying around that's perfectly usable? The second reason is that I had all sorts of photos and things that I wanted to put on the wall which are of an Arctic theme, and they're all blue and white. So I decided white was absolutely perfect because it sort of mimics the snowiness, the whiteness of the snow in the Arctic. So one of the biggest improvements in this room is the addition of this new rug and this second-hand table, which Tim found on Gumtree for me for just £15. It's oak veneer and it's in pretty good condition. It's a nice large size. I think it's 1.8 meters by about 1 meter wide, and it also has 2 handy little drawers. When you first step into this room, you'll see there's a really large space with nothing in it, and I've positioned the table so that it's closer to the window rather than centering it in the middle of the rug there. And that's deliberate. That's because I actually have plans to get some sort of armchair or something, or maybe a small 2-seater sofa to put here, and that's also part of the reason that I've placed this canvas print very high up on the wall. This is a print of a photo which I actually took myself. I took it during an Alaskan Arctic expedition, which I did in 2014, and I did it with Joe Henderson, the Malamute man himself. If you're a Malamute lover, you probably know exactly who Joe is. He's an amazing guy, and I count him as a good friend. And this is us on expedition with his 22 Alaskan Malamutes on the northern side of the Brooks Range in northern Alaska. Really wanted to only put one chest of drawers back into this room rather than the two that I had in here before. So this is the larger of the two that were in here previously, and I managed to purge quite a lot of that stuff, and then everything that we decided was useful and wanted to keep, we've moved down to our study. I use my large cutting board and the light box really quite often, so it made sense for me to keep them out, and as it happened they just fit quite nicely on top of this chest of drawers. Got a photo of Legend, who is a guide dog puppy we've been sponsoring since he was teeny tiny, and he's doing very well in his puppy training school, and he'll be graduating as a qualified guide dog in the near future, and we're just so proud of him. So first thing I'll show you is I just keep a small cutting board in the drawer. I don't tend to reach for it anywhere near as often as the large one, so that's why it sits there. And then I have all of these little sets to do in the future, and quite a lot of the things in here are things to be done at some point, so I have a few of those. Then for Christmas, Tim and I received some of these plaster gnomes which are to be decorated, and I've also got some little Lego kits to put together just for fun, and I also keep my extension for the power outlets, because there's actually no power outlet particularly near the table, so if I want to use my sewing machine or the heat gun, then at least I can do so at the table. The left hand drawer is more sort of plastic storage things. This drawer remains entirely unchanged from previously, and it holds the bulk of my collection of beads and some jewellery findings as well. I used to be really into making jewellery, and particularly earrings and pendants and bracelets and things, and this has been a great system for me to keep everything organised. These little tubs actually were on clearance in Sainsbury's, just one of our British supermarkets here, and they work so well. They're just the right size for the sort of quantities of beads which I was ordering back in the day when I was super into jewellery making. And I could put the labels on the top, but do you know what? I actually haven't been accessing these tubs very often, so it's not something I'm going to trouble myself with right now, and they're all labelled on the sides in any case. As you can see, we have bespoke drawer dividers here, and Tim and I made these together. These are made of foam board, which are then just sprayed in glue and covered in a vinyl wallpaper sample, and that it's just easy to wipe clean, and it keeps everything nice and organised. Over at this end I have a collection of MAC pigments and glitters. The next drawer down holds a variety of things, and the first thing I'll show you is this guillotine by Tonic Studios. I picked this up on Amazon, having seen many different crafters on YouTube recommend it, and it is a great little guillotine. I really like it for card making and things. And by the way, if you do see something that you're interested in trying out yourself, I'll try and put links to lots of things down in the description of this video, because I actually purchased probably the bulk of the things in this room on Amazon over the years. Also lots of charity shop finds and things as well, but where I can, I'll try and put links below. Here I've got an enormous stash. I don't know if you can appreciate just how much stuff there is here, but this is all wallpaper samples. Over here I have a Tupperware of really ancient nail polish. These nail polishes are absolutely ancient, probably between, I'd say, 10 and 15 years old for most of them. A lot of these are Urban Decay and Hard Candy, and they're really pretty colours, but the formula has just gone so bad. But I have discovered that they are very useful if you want to create marbling effects on things like glassware and create pretty little decorative items. So I really enjoy playing with them, and I'm not going to throw them away. I'm just going to carry on using them and enjoying them. This is the first of my fabric drawers, and I have a variety of different felts and crushed velvets and batiks and cotton and all sorts of fabrics down here. And then of course pipe cleaners. Everybody needs pipe cleaners. In this bag I've actually got a scarf which I had decided to do using an arm knitting technique, and I made it far too big, so I've actually decided I'm going to tear that apart and use it for something else. And then this is what I was talking about with the wallpaper samples. This one is actually fabrics. These are all upholstery fabric samples, and I have stacks and stacks of these, and you can do so many things with them. Absolutely love these, so I have plenty of those. Actually, I got virtually all of this for free from a furniture shop. It was near Christmas and we were talking about making cards and things with the sales assistant there, and he actually said to us they had a storeroom full of fabric samples which were no longer current and they were about to throw them away. Would we like them? So of course I said yes please, and I've been using these for years and years. Over on the window I decided to remove the cushions and throw that used to be here. Oh, and here's Milo telling me it's time for her dinner. Here I've got some cowbells, which are actually from a belly dance shop in Edinburgh, but I like them because the sound of them always makes me think of my childhood in Cyprus. We used to spend many summers there, and there are lots of goats and things wandering about with little bells on. Over here on this little trolley, well, it's not really a trolley, it doesn't have wheels, set of shelves I guess, I have different watercolour stretching boards and trays and a lap tray and palettes. I used to love oil painting. When I did my A-level art, it was oil painting that I always used to do, sometimes acrylic. Watercolour's been a very recent thing for me. Against this wall of the crafts room is where I store the majority of my products, and I have everything stashed on these 3 IKEA Billy bookcases just because we had them from our old house. I don't especially love them or anything. Actually, I would really like to replace them in the future, but for now they'll do just fine. I have changed the way that I've organised all my things though. Previously I had all my books at the very bottom shelf of each unit, whereas now I've tried to intersperse them so that the books sit next to the products they relate to. So I've got painting books next to my paints, sketching books next to my pencils and things, and I've got card making technique books next to the card making supplies, and so on. For example, this shelf here, I have my jewellery books with my jewellery making products. So this shelf is all to do with jewellery. So one of the areas in which I was able to really make a dent with purging some extra items was my collection of books. I had a good number of books and they were all lining the bottom shelves of these units previously, and I went through every single book again before I brought them back into this room once the redecorating stage was completed. And I actually found there were a number of books which, whilst they were lovely and they did spark joy, I simply wasn't using them, and I thought it would be better to donate them and give them away so that someone could actually enjoy using them rather than just admiring them collecting dust on a shelf. This is where I keep the majority of products to do with creating nice smellies, like bath bombs and even toilet bombs, soap making stuff and everything. And you can see I've got my aromatherapy book here. I have a selection of funnels and spray bottles sitting inside my large soap mold, and right at the back, maybe you can just see the shiny metal thing there, that's a soap slicer. And then I've got some melt and pour soap base here, and then some fragrances in here. I've got plenty more in here, pipettes and things like that, which I use for measuring and mixing when I'm making different products. And then I've got my silicone molds here. This was a recent charity shop find, and it's been really fun playing with. This is a measuring cup by Mason Cash, and I've seen similar ones by the same company on Amazon for about 20 odd pounds, but I think I only paid £2 or £3 for this. And it's been really useful. I like to use it when I'm making bath bombs. Back in 2015, I made a New Year's resolution to do a new thing a day. And this was actually one of the projects which I tried out. And this was to transfer a photo onto a piece of wood. So this is a photo of Leela and Ruma, which I print it out on an inkjet printer and then use Mod Podge to transfer it onto a block of wood. And actually the block of wood was one of hundreds given to me by a palette company who I reached out to about my blog to do with the New Thing a Day challenge, and they invited me to come and have a tour and pick out free samples of wood for my projects, which was absolutely amazing. This shelf is dedicated to sewing and knitting and things like that, and you can see the books which I have on this shelf relate to that. And this is also where I keep my Tupperware of cutting implements. I use these for everything, not just sewing, but they just seem to fit in quite well in this category. And I've got selections of foam boards inside this, which is actually, it was a collector's edition of The Sims 2 back in the day when that was the current game. So this is the Tupperware in which I keep embroidery threads. And then down here and here and here, I've got different sewing machine threads and just cotton threads and things like that. These are all specialty ones. These are all glitter threads. And I bought them on eBay very, very inexpensively from China, I think. And then this container here is specifically designed for holding knitting wool and knitting needles and things. Now I don't know how to knit, and Tim actually inherited all these knitting needles from his grandmother when she passed away, so we've hung on to them. And Tim did try and knit a scarf many years ago, but I think he only did a couple of inches, so he never finished the project. But I do love playing with wools and different fabrics and textures and things, and I have done many projects using arm knitting and finger knitting techniques, which I found videos on YouTube showing me how to do them, and I did lots of those as my New Thing a Day challenges. And I'll try and insert some photos of some of the things that I actually have made. So this is a really cool product which I found on Amazon, and it's specifically designed for people who enjoy knitting, and it's got these pockets for your knitting needles at the front, and then you can store all of your different wools and yarns inside, and it has space so that you can have current projects sticking out. At least I assume that's what it's for. I'm not a knitter, so I'm not really sure, but that's how I use it. And then I've got really cool, pretty different wools, mostly by a company called Bon Bon, and I really love the variated colours that they do. And I actually bought these from a shop in Germany because I knew which products I wanted, but they were half the price to order them from a shop in Germany rather than the UK, which is just crazy. But if you live in Europe, here's a tip for you: always check out German eBay and the German websites, because their shipping is far cheaper than ours, and if the prices are comparable, you can save a ton of money by ordering the same products from Germany rather than the UK. Continuing the sewing and fabric theme, this next shelf holds similar items. So we've got lots of fabric paint and lots of ribbon and twines and zips and fabric glue and buttons and needles and all that sort of thing. And again, particularly these two Tupperwares on the very left, they contain a lot of products which Tim's grandmother left us. And we've also got some embroidery loops here. And of course, every crafts room needs a sewing machine. So this is mine. It's absolutely ancient and it's not the best machine in the world, but it was the best I could afford at the time when I decided to purchase it, and it served me well. I'm not the best at sewing. I definitely need to practice far more. And then on this side of the shelf, I have a variety of general crafting books. This bottom shelf of this unit holds my cat and dog books. These are reference books with lots of photographs, and I like them for finding pictures I like. I've also got just general books, particularly on sled dogs and Alaskan Malamutes. And then I have my Tupperware full of clay products, and the reason that this sits here is because within that category I decided to add the FIMO kit that I think Tim had given me as a stocking filler a while back, and it actually has instructions on how to create a cat and a dog. So of course that fits in perfectly with my cat and dog theme on this shelf. In amongst my collection of dog books, I have 2 books which are particularly dear to me. The first is Malamute Man, Memoirs of an Arctic Traveller, written by Joe Henderson. And the second, I am just so proud of this. Joe contacted me when he was writing his second book and asked if he could use my photo for the cover. I am just so honoured and so very proud. On this shelf I've got some of my general books on how to make and do pretty much anything, and I have all my epoxy resin products in the corner over here, and then I've just got my little wooden hippo and rhino, which were handcrafted by someone I used to see all the time when my family lived in Gabon in West Africa, so they've got a lot of great memories from when I was younger. The next shelf down holds my acrylics and my oil paints, as well as some glass paints. And actually the glass paints here, they can be used with the epoxy resin up there, so that's kind of cool. I've been experimenting with that recently. And then I also purchased a closed ice cube tray. This was a little hack which I tried out after watching someone's YouTube channel, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, but the idea is very simple. You buy an ice cube tray which has a lid, and you use it to decant small quantities of your drawing inks or your paints, and therefore they don't dry out. You can cover them up with the lid. And also I've painted little swatches so that I could see exactly what the colours look like once they've dried on paper, and it works okay, but I have to admit, maybe it's the climate here, I'm not sure, but my ink certainly did dry out despite being in this container. However, I still use it anyway because it is easier than having to constantly open and close the lids of the bottles while I work. On the very left I have this really fun coffee table book, Why Cats Paint, and it has quite a lot of funny photos of artwork by cats. Well, I say artwork, but of course I use that in the loosest terms, and it's just a fun book and it makes me laugh. And behind the book I keep some matte gel and some gesso, and then a couple of empty jars. I have a collection of my favourite watercolour books, and I particularly like Anne Blockley. She's remarkably talented, very, very inspirational. And I have tons and tons and tons of brushes. Some of these are from when I was a kid, some are from when I was doing my A-level art, and some are a lot more recent. And they're all absolutely brilliant. And I really also enjoy using these pen brushes where you can fill a reservoir of water. This is a lovely little set of watercolour paints by Winsor & Newton, and this is their Cotman range of 48 colours, and it's really nice quality, a good range of colours, and I like that you can use the plastic trays on the side to mix your colours as well. So I really like this set. In fact, I like it so much that I got a set exactly like this for my mum. This is the full set of the Faber-Castell watercolour pencils, the Albrecht-Dürer set. These are my absolute favourite products to work with of all time. This set is amazing. The quality is incredible, and what I particularly like about these is if you're the sort of person who prefers to draw by hand rather than paint directly onto a canvas or onto paper, then this is ideal, because what I tend to do anyway is I sketch out my design with blocks of colour or fine lines depending on the style I'm going for, using the pencils, and then you just get a wet paintbrush and go over it all with the brush, and it turns the pencil into paint. And so that's what I've been doing, and I can actually show you. This is the most recent watercolour pencil painting that I did, and it's just a little pet portrait that someone on Instagram asked me to do of their American Eskimo dogs. And the reason that I enjoy using the pencils to do this is because As you can see, these are white dogs, and it is extremely hard to paint white dogs, and you need to capture all the different sort of tones and colors hidden in the shadows of the white to create the illusion of fur and texture and things. And personally, I feel that the best way to do that is, rather than going directly on my paintbrush and perhaps not getting exactly what I'm looking for, I can do that with my pencils. So yep, really highly recommend these. These are by far my favorite watercolor pencils that I've tried so far. I also have the full set of the Derwent watercolor pencils. Also by Derwent, I have the Inktense blocks. I've got the full set of 72. These are really good for doing the job much quicker, or if you just prefer working in a bolder sort of design as well. These work really well, and again, these are perfect for using on fabric. This Tupperware is full of Winsor & Newton drawing inks, and I absolutely love these. I like to use them in conjunction with my watercolor paints. They just add extra vibrancy and they're really easy to work with. And not long ago I picked up this set. It's a little calligraphy set with lots of interchangeable nibs and tips, and literally you just use this like a dip pen in the inks. Underneath the drawing inks, I have my tubes of watercolor paints, which in all honesty, I really don't use anywhere near as often as I use the dried set from Winsor & Newton here. The most recent addition to the crafts room is this pen white by Dr. P.H. Martins, and I particularly like this to add little sparkle and proper opaque white to the eyes of any portraits that I'm drawing. So I've got everything from felt tip pens to Faber-Castell drawing pens. I've got gel pens, normal pens, watercolor brush pens such as the Zig Clean Color brand. These are really, really nice. I really like these. These are Japanese. The Derwent line painters, these are really, really interesting. They are very, very strange to work with, but you can do so many cool things with them that I've never seen in another product. So they're definitely worth checking out if you like to experiment and try out new products. Although I suppose they're not that new now. I did buy them a while ago. But they come as little pens with really cool nibs. These are great little pens. They actually contain a form of paint, so you have the option to either do very fine lines and paint that way rather than using a very fine brush, or you can blot out the ink, the paint rather, onto your paper and blow it around and create really cool textures. And it's particularly good, not in this color, but very good for creating texture when you're doing subjects such as animals and you need to create the illusion of fur. These three sets are actually from my dad, and he had them when he was a student at Delft University back in the day, and he used them for technical drawing because these nibs are so fine and absolutely perfect for precision drawings. And I have these to play with now. And then, because Tim knows that I really enjoy roaching, I think it's a wonderful brand, he managed to find this set of artist colours in a charity shop, and you can see he only paid £4.95 for them. I haven't actually played with them yet, I haven't had the time, but I can't wait. I'm definitely going to make time in the next couple of weeks to really sit down and get to grips with these. And then this end of the shelf has some more pens by Faber-Castell, as well as different gel sticks and then some pastels. Following on from that, the next shelf down is to do with drawing and sketching. So here I've got a Tupperware full of different erasers, and I actually buy a lot of these products when I'm over in Cyprus because there's a shop there called Jumbo which sells a lot of Faber-Castell products much less expensively than I can find them over here. And again, I've got loads of sharpeners and pencils and charcoal and all sorts of things. Again, lots of it picked up in Cyprus. And down here I've just got some generic watercolor pencils, and actually I think there's some Caran d'Ache in there as well, and just normal coloring pencils. And then over here I have the full range of the Faber-Castell Polychromos set. If you enjoy sketching and drawing and you want a really nice set of coloring pencils, this is probably it. It's a beautiful set. I haven't used it too much, but I do use it to add little areas of shading and things to different paintings and cards that I do, but the quality is outstanding. I realize they blend amazingly well. And then underneath I've got different pads of paper. Lots of it is watercolor paper, and then I've got some sketch pads, and then I've got some nice little professional quality sketchbooks here as well as a series of books teaching how to draw different topics, particularly animals, because that's what I'm interested in. And then here I've got some spiral bound sketch pads as well. And right at the back I've got some Play-Doh, because who doesn't like playing with Play-Doh? And then at the bottom shelf of this unit I've got the majority of my reference illustrated books to do with animals and nature and all sorts of things like that, and then a few travel books which have nice illustrations and photos as well. And then this is just a very old biscuit tin in which I keep scraps from card making projects. So this is just where I put in all sorts of die cut and ready painted scraps and things, as well as little leftovers. And you can see I've got quite a lot of Christmas things in this box. The top shelf of the third unit has some illustrated books here. I've got some on Gauguin, Darren Woodhead, then an encyclopedia of illustration. I've got my heat gun at the back there, and then I've got some spray glues and things like that, some Mod Podge, and then some just table salt and things, because I enjoy playing with salt to create texture, particularly when painting with watercolor and trying to create seascapes and any body of water. Next down I have a selection of washi tapes, masking tapes, sellotapes, and then loads of different types of glues, including my glue gun. And this is how I sort out different types of hand pressed paper and things. Some of them have leaves and things. And then in these ones I've got printed out images from Google searches of different generic images that I found useful for whatever project I was working on at the time. But I never throw anything away, because I wouldn't like to have to print out the same thing again if I'd already done it once. This next shelf holds my sort of office supplies and generic sort of stationery. So I've got these little herb pots which are full of different pens and scissors and bookmarks and things like that. Then I've got some blank notebooks, and I tend to pick these up for just £1 or £2 at the Works, which is a really great inexpensive shop here in the UK. These are some brand new pens which my father just gave me while I was visiting in Cyprus. I've got these little chests, and they have things like post-it notes and drawing pins and that sort of stuff. And then here I've got a variety of different types of cardstock. All of these shelves are to do with card making, really. So over here I've got my coloured card and graph paper and things. This is full of different types of patterned paper and things which my mother-in-law gave me. Then over here I've got my embossing powders, glitters, which I put in much smaller tubs. These used to be in really big Tupperware before I decided to downsize that collection. Sequins and little googly eyes and things like that in here. I've got some baby wipes and a silicone mat, which is really good when you're stamping with inks. I've got my embossing and ink pads all together in here, and then this is full of distress inks. I've got a lot of Tim Holtz, and then Tim found me this huge set of about 50 distress inks, just generic Hobbycraft brand, but they work really well as well. This shelf is all to do with stamping and die cutting. So you can see here I've got my Big Shot by Sizzix, and underneath I've got different plates, and I've got some stamps and things in this file here. And then whatever fit, I managed to put stamps and dies in these empty DVD cases, which saved me a lot of space. And then I've got some bigger ones there. And I've also got this really handy stamping tool by Fiskars. This is wonderful for properly aligning when you're stamping. And the very last shelf is this one here, and this again ties in with card making. So on the left I've got some books to do with designs, and then some books that sort of teach you different techniques for making cards. Here I've got an enormous stash of different papers that I like to use, and the different qualities and different ranges. I've got so many and they're so fun. I really like these. Some I've used a lot more than others, some are seasonal, some are just more generic, but they're all really nice quality, and you just can't have enough of this stuff. It's always useful. And this is just a really inexpensive way of keeping some of my previous projects and artwork protected and to prevent it getting creased and things. So these are just some of the paintings that I've done, mostly watercolors. But yeah, you'll see there's a theme. They're pretty much all dogs, or at least animals, and trying out different techniques, going for different looks. And oh, here's a portrait I had done from an old photo of my sister. She hates this. It's really funny. And I think I've shown these before in a different video. But yeah, just playing around with different things and seeing what worked and what didn't. And then I got rid of a bunch of stuff that I really wasn't proud of at all. And in fact, this is another portrait done from the same photo of my sister, trying entirely different style. And yeah, I think she probably likes that even less than the first one. So sorry, Amanda. The 3 boxes at the end here were an incredible charity shop find. Tim and I wandered into a shop at the weekend one day and spotted these. These are Anna Griffin card making kits, and the retail price for these is just ridiculous, but we picked up all 3 boxes just for £5 each. So in these kits you get all sorts of bits and pieces and cardstock and embellishments and envelopes and stickers and all sorts of things to create the most beautiful cards. So I've got this one, which is the floral impression set. This kit here is all to do with Christmas, as indeed is the 3rd one, and I've made some really nice cards using these kits, and there were a few bits and pieces missing, but really not a lot. I mean, they're pretty much full sets. And then this is the 3rd one. Again, this is Christmas. They're all the Anne and Griffin range, and so much fun to play with. The door of this room is almost always left open. The only reason I've closed it for filming today is just to stop the animals coming in and out and distracting everyone. So usually you don't see this, but tucked behind the door I have here a large roll of fabric. This is actually the fabric with which we upholstered the dining room chairs, if you've seen that video. And I've got some pattern paper, and then I have an easel which sits at the back. And I have these currently empty bags which I picked up at Denali National Park in Alaska, and I just love them. So that's everything, and I think this system is going to work even better for me than the previous system, because now the books which relate to the products are all on the same shelves. I've reorganized things so it makes even more sense now the way things are lined up. So for example, we have all our sewing products in this area. We've got all of our paint and drawing stuff in this area. And then I've got my card making section all here as well. So it works really well, and I'm really excited about finally having a surface on which to work. Thank you so much for joining me on this tour. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more from us in the future, please subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in our next video. Thanks for watching.